Let it not be said that Geek Legion of Doom does not cater to the cinephile. We are of course talking about Werewolf in a Women's Prison, a 2006 exploitation, silly B-movie horror comedy directed by Jeff Leroy. Now, what's the story? Is there one? Let's discuss. So we start off with a couple on vacation camping. It's somewhere in South America. It's some like fictional country, and they are attacked. The boyfriend is killed, and the woman is bitten by a werewolf. Now she is thrown into this prison for this kind of fictional South American country, straight to jail in this kind of dilapidated, run-down prison run by a corrupt warden for the murder of her boyfriend. Now, of course, she denies it. But this is a corrupt prison where the guards and the kind of the warden, you know, are making these women do various kind of things for them and paying customers. But then what they don't realise is this woman is now a werewolf, and she is going to give both the inmates and the prison workers a real headache. What will happen? You will have to watch the movie and find out. So, let us discuss what works in this movie. Now, I'm going to say right off the top, I actually enjoyed this movie more than I thought I would. Yes, there's a lot of sex scenes. It kind of feels like somewhat of a softcore porn to a certain degree, but there's a surprising amount of plot to a large degree. You know, we have that kind of setup. We've also got, you know, once the warden discovers that this, you know, this woman is now a werewolf, he wants to kind of exploit that and try and get more money from it and things like this. There's various kind of relationships, both friendly and kind of adversary within the kind of the prison community, things like this. So I'm not saying this is some sort of like fantastic deep plot, but there's a little more story here than I maybe was expecting. The other thing I would say here is the VFX. The VFX are quite out there, and they are pretty gory. I was surprised the level of gore, I have to say, achieved practically. It has got tons of blood and people getting kind of ripped apart by this kind of werewolf. I'm not saying, I mean, Rick Baker's not worried, don't get me wrong, but it's pretty good for a very, very low budget movie, which kind of brings me on to the werewolf itself, which is kind of like a fun design, a massively over muscular kind of werewolf costume that kind of looks both impressive and kind of goofy at the kind of the same time. Again, I'm kind of used to watching B movies, so for me, I kind of liked it. It could have done without the kind of the glowing red eyes, which I thought was a little, you know, over the top, to be honest. But I actually did quite like the werewolf costume. You know, it's got a movable jaw, it's kind of big and bulky. It looks a little goofy, let's not kid ourselves. But, you know, I've seen worse, let me put it like this. And I kind of quite liked its kind of the level of brutality in this movie. It's not a realistic gore film or anything like that. It's you know, but it's a fun, over-the-top, gory sexploitation movie. And yes, let's talk about the sex. There's variety of kind of lesbian scenes and kind of like light sort of nudity here, TNA, that sort of thing. Maybe less than you were expecting, but kind of more if you had no idea what this kind of movie was. So there's a reasonable amount, but I don't think it sort of spends too much time. There's possibly a longer version with more sex scenes, who knows. But yeah, there's plenty here, but maybe not enough to consider it like, you know, a full-on light porno or what have you. It's actually got some quite funny kind of gags in it. There's like a few nods to other kind of werewolf properties. I think primarily here, American Werewolf in London, like for example, this woman Sarah's boyfriend who was killed by the werewolf kind of pops up in kind of a kind of ghost form to Sarah, kind of talking to her and stuff. Very obviously referencing the American Werewolf in London kind of scenes and things like this. So You know, there's some kind of like funny sort of moments in this. Some of it's a little goofy, some of it's a bit referential. Not all of it works, but you know, there's enough here to, I think, make you somewhat amused. There's, of course, lots of attractive, well-endowed women in this movie, all of whom pretty much get them out for the lads. So, you know, plenty of gore, girls and guns in this movie. So, you know, it's a surprisingly entertaining movie with a lot of kind of like, I think a lot of effort into it, despite it being a real low budget and kind of quickly produced movie. What doesn't work, I mean, if you're not into schlock, you ain't gonna like this. Let me just say this. I mean, it's obviously catering to, you know, a specific audience. You know, an exploitation style movies. We used to get a lot of these kind of style things in the kind of the 70s and stuff. This is like a more modern version of it, obviously. But it's not going to be for everyone. It is extremely cheap, and I think it's most notable in the kind of the sets here, many of which literally look like cardboard, and there's not been a lot of obviously attention to detail to make this look like a legitimate prison or prison guards and things like this. Yes, there's obviously lots of kind of plot holes. Again, this movie is not trying to be a particularly well thought out genre piece, if that makes sense. It's meant to be a silly, schlocky film. You know, but yeah, if you wanted this if you want to watch a werewolf movie for its story, there are probably better examples. Even though I would say I still think the actual story here was still okay, better than I was kind of expecting. Obviously, the acting, the kind of the technical aptitude here is again on the lower budget movie. It feels like it's very kind of quickly shot. Things are just kind of like, yeah, that'll do, let's move on kind of to the next kind of shot here and there. But I do think there's still, certainly in regards to the VFX here, I was suitably impressed. And even kind of, as I say, there are some elements here that I kind of enjoyed. In actual fact, there, one other thing I kind of forgot to mention in my positives, they even kind of tweak the werewolf lore to a degree that I enjoyed. Again, this might annoy purists, so this is going to be a double-edged sword. But for example, she can partially transform during the day and control the kind of the creature, but it's only like a partial transformation. So there's a scene where her and another prisoner escape, and she's trying to protect her friends from kind of like the prison guards that are tracking her and stuff, and she can semi-transform, but is able to control it. Again, I actually kind of quite like that. You know, during the day, it's kind of like, you know, that's what she can do, but obviously during a full moon or the night, she can't control it. She's a wild beast. So, yeah, there is a little bit of nuance, believe it or not, and even some elements added to a werewolf lore that I quite enjoyed. But the whole look of the movie, as I say, extraordinarily cheap, silly. You know, the characters ultimately are very much over-the-top caricatures. No one really here is going to what you could be classed as an interesting sort of character with a fleshed out backstory or unique kind of characteristics that make them kind of stand out as a particular person. But it's a silly, entertaining movie if you don't mind schlock. I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10. Have you seen it? What are your thoughts? Please do leave me a comment and I'll look forward to you next time. Bye for now.